And we're recording.
Red dot.
Bada bing.
Hello.
Let's introduce ourselves. This is my channel, Eric Bauer, High Definition Podcast. Does it exist anymore? It's up in the air. Talk to Jason Hook about things that don't exist anymore.
Hi, I'm Jason Hook from Get Into It with Jason Hook. I'll make a video someday. You see me tonight.
He's doing a video now. That's what's important.
Yeah, there you go. I am Patrick from Ground Zero Salem. Just hit 2,000 subs, no big deal.
No big thing.
NBD.
Celebrate with 2 people in the 2K club.
I have 500.
We got to get Jason up there.
I got.
So if you're not subscribed to that beautiful bearded man,
I have to make content that would make me. That's why I only have 500.
You know, it'll happen when you have time, my man. So we decided to be a fucking fun ass time to talk about some hardcore, and specifically we're going to talk about Euro hardcore. Now this isn't going to be like in our opinions the greatest list. It's just we picked 5 favorites each, and I guess we're just going to kind of go through them and discuss them, maybe talk about some runners ups. I don't know, I pulled a bunch of shit.
Yeah, I only pulled 6 because my stuff isn't fully organized, but
We all know that.
I can talk about it. I might just not have it available.
We are aware.
I also only pulled 6, but I have lots of stuff within arm's reach.
Perfect.
I can just.
I don't see. I pulled more because I don't have anything in arm's reach in this room. So I got movies in kind of arm's reach, but that's not what we're talking about.
Film.
I can telekinetically just make stuff fly to my hands. So.
Yeah, I don't really know how this idea popped into my head. I was just thinking about like hardcore, and I feel like a lot of it just kind of gets lumped into like this assumption that anytime people are going to talk about it, it's going to be either US or UK hardcore. I know that's not entirely accurate, but I just kind of feel like those are like, that's where the assumption usually goes.
Sure.
In a lot of cases, but I mean, there's so much, not just from back in the day, but now happening in countries that aren't America and aren't the UK or specifically England, that I feel like kind of falls in the cracks a little bit.
Sure.
You know, I could have put Swedish hardcore on the omission list. I didn't personally pick anything that wasn't a runner-up from Sweden, but that's another one of those countries that I think just kind of gets lumped into that like gimme pile of hardcore bands that are going to get discussed at some point.
Yeah, I didn't pick any of the Swedish bands because it was just too daunting. Like, especially because I've been really digging into Scandinavian hardcore lately and kind of discovering stuff that I just wasn't into when I was younger. Because when I was younger, it was just pretty much like anti-CMX, and like some newer bands like Genocide Superstars and stuff like that. But I've been really like learning the history of it, and there's so much of it. I can't pick just one Swedish thing to talk about, so I was just like, fuck it, I'm not going to talk about anything. I guess I could do an honorable mention right now. I was going to pick out the 7-inch pressing of the Asocial How Could Hardcore Be Any Worse record, which is such a like crazy proto grind, like maniacal fucking hardcore record. That was kind of on my list, but I wanted to pick weird shit with like 1 or 2 Stone Cold classics. So that's kind of like what I did, like stuff that's impressed upon me over the years. Like I don't have a long history with European hardcore other than the very like meat and potatoes heavy hitters.
Right.
But the stuff that I have that has come across my path in the past 20 years or so has just been oddball stuff that hasn't been like the most obvious thing. But it's not like I'm trying to pick like kooky choices or anything. It's just like stuff that fell into my lap before everything was so easy and accessible. So
yeah.
Well, that's the thing about it now is I think, you know, when we're all relatively in the same age group, and when we were younger, there was no, you know, YouTube or anything. So like, you know, European hardcore punk bands from like, you know, the way, you know, depths of Europe, like the smaller countries, like I couldn't keystroke up and know a discography in 5 seconds.
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, we had Maximum Rock and Roll and Profane Existence scene reports to rely on.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I mean, anything is just it's right there if you want it. Yeah. So I think that's, you know, that's why only those certain bands, which everyone knows because they were the big giant ones that made their way into like U.S. press or whatever.
Right. That's one of my picks. One of my not my picks, but one of my honorables, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Head Cleaners. Shit's fucking stone cold classic essential shit, but also impossible to find if you want an original press.
That shit. Pull that right now, actually.
Oh yeah.
Like said, with our, and this came free with what's the Shorter, Faster, Louder, I think, or no, the Barbaric Thrash Detonation compilation on 625. It was
I've got 2 Asocial EPs. Neither one is that one.
Yeah, their other stuff is okay. Like I like their other stuff fine. It's proper crazy Swedish hardcore stuff, but that's just like a fucking bomb blast. I have a okay Radiation Records like compilation LP too that I could probably pull as well, but I'm not gonna.
This was another one, another mention. Miss Brucarna.
Oh, okay. I was like, who are Criget's gentlemen?
Sounds like a nightclub.
Yeah.
Glare here is real nice, real good. Real good glare.
Like when I was going through my list too, I mentioned before we started real quick, like I didn't really, my list is going to be, there's one stone cold classic band, which I think one of us probably has on our list. And then the rest are actually relatively, I don't want to say newer, but they're more, I would say, my wave of when I started getting into, like, these were bands that are big for me that someone who was knew about, the like, you know, who was involved in the 80s, like, it's like my 80s bands if I was like 17 in 1985 or something. So I have a lot of,
wrong with that.
I have a mid 90s and a few early 2000s going on here. And then a newer band that that I dig.
Nothing wrong with that at all. So who wants to start?
Not it.
Pat?
I'll start, sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do I want to put in as my number 5? I'll do this. I'll do this one. This is the only actual LP that I pulled. The rest are CDs, and there's a 7-inch.
These guys are the Spermbirds.
Spermbirds, Cerberus.
Yeah, Cerberus, man. Something to prove. This is their first, as far as I know, LP. This is my favorite Nardcore LP from Germany. Because that's like what this sounds like. It's a combination of like Southern California and Northern NorCal, like hardcore, done really, really well, really, really tight, melodic. It's got like little surfy bits. It has parts that remind me almost of the Dead Kennedys, and some parts that kind of remind me more of like super early, for lack of a better term, like posy kind of shit, like Stalag 13 or something, like kind of goofy skater stuff, but also like relatively sincere, like we got to make a change kind of shit. Like they have a song, what's that song? My God Rides a Skateboard. That has like terrible like white boy funk, like Chili Peppers in the beginning, and then just rips. There's that song No Punks in K-Town, which is what that YouTube channel that like posts rips of LPs is named after. And that song, good reason to name a channel after it. That song fucking rules. A lot of it's like really fucking raging. A lot of it's really melodic. It's got that like, hey, we're really going for a California kind of snotty thing. There's a song called Americans Are Cool, which I believe is sarcastic, but it's still a song called Americans Are Cool. These guys have like 9 LPs or so around that. I looked it up I looked at their whole discography on like YouTube Red. I had one of their later records and it was like straight up like Fat Records kind of shit from what I remember. So
I'm not going to lie. I've never heard it.
You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
I've never heard it either, but I will say I've seen like that cover.
Yeah.
I've seen that record a million times, but I've never.
It's an iconic cover. Like I know the
Yeah.
cover. I've just never heard the music.
Yeah, it's weird. It's got the schism kind of font with a tote skull, which we could all do without. But yeah, I don't know. It's fucking great, like California hardcore from wherever they're from in Germany. I don't know if they're from Berlin or what. This came out on Boner Records too.
Boner,
California label that
wow,
like early Melvin stuff. Well, domestically, I think it was released in Germany on WWII at some point. I don't know.
Boner was like a really like kind of like I don't want to say they were like as diverse as a label as like Alchemy, but I feel like Boner had a little bit more of a niche. But still, like you had bands like who put albums out on Boner, like the Boneless Ones. Wasn't that a Boner Records release?
Yep, that's the only other Boner release. Well, no, because I have that Melvin's 2-on-1 CD that I think is on Boner, but
I think I have a Fang record that's on Boner, maybe.
That would track, yeah.
And then like, did the Melvins release on Boner? I'm pretty
Ozma's
sure
on Boner.
Who? Ozma?
The album Ozma's on Boner.
Yeah. And oh fuck, who? Like the Screaming Iranians from Hell or something like that. I think they were on Boner.
Oh, Fearless Iranians from Hell.
Yeah, that's the band. I'm pretty sure they put out material on Boner. There goes Pat on his quest to determine if I'm correct.
I just think a record label called Boner is cool.
Die for Allah is on. I can't read the. Yeah, this is on Boner.
Yeah. All right. I'm not full of shit.
You know,
all in the tank.
You know your things.
I know some things. I don't know everything. I don't know a lot of things.
Me neither.
All right. How about you, Jason Hook?
We'll stay in Germany. These are in no order for me either. So Pat will appreciate this. Eric, I don't know if you ever got into this band. This is a mid-90s favorite of mine right here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got some Oxymoron.
So this is Fuck the 90s. Here's Our Noise. This is actually a recent repress. 6 Feet Under just repressed this. I don't know, which is a hardcore label. The last couple of years.
So good.
Gatefold. You got the lyrics in here. Got the photo thing here. Got the photo collage. You got the nice, the real film, guys.
Real film. Not an effect.
This might be on our hip color too, I believe. Ooh.
Nice splatter.
And I believe it comes with a poster. Look at this.
Oh, those are some punk motherfuckers right there.
Yeah, so Oxymoron was a band from Germany from the I believe they've existed from the mid-90s till the early 2Ks, I believe.
At least, yeah.
I'm leaving my shit too. This isn't a YouTube video, so that's okay. Yeah, so like the early 2000s, I believe they might have done a couple one-off reunions after that, and then maybe I know there's a new band that features a member of Oxymoron that might do Oxymoron covers into their regular current band set. I believe I can't remember what they're called, but anyway, so they're a mid-90s street punk band, but I say this on my channel every once in a while. Wheel not reinvented, but Wheel need not be reinvented.
Sure, yeah.
It's straight up 3-chord anthemic chorus street punk that's just fucking awesome. It's great. Like, and like I mentioned before, this isn't like a so-called European Stone Cold classic, but for me and all my friends, this band was ginormous when they were around. Like we all listened to Oxymoron. We all had the shirt with the bullet holes in it and stuff. Yeah. And I saw them once in Rhode Island, and it ruled. And
I was at the same gig, I think. Was it at the Social Chaos tour?
No, this was at the Met Cafe.
Oh, okay.
Like this album is dedicated to all bands and people that still carry the banner of punk and sod the pop crap of today. But yeah, they're just they're like I would say a UK 82 band in the mid 90s doing like that mid 90s street punk explosion. Boston was huge in Boston. You know, you had all the New York bands, and these guys were the German version of it, and it's just catchy, just punk tunes.
One of the I
Yeah.
can't remember the names of the. I have 2 Oxymoron albums. One of them is the Westworld 12-inch
Yeah.
EP.
Yeah,
That thing
the
fucking
Pack is
rages,
Back.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that EP is sick.
like this
All
has
their
like
stuff is equally as good, I think.
Like this has Mohegan Tunes, Beware Poisonous on it. Like they're all songs you just like crush cider with your friends and spike your mohawk and like pogo and pump your fists and just fucking have a great time. Which is like when I saw them there. And there's always like one dude I love about these bands. So you got like the greaser, you got the mohawk punk guy, you have like the dude wearing the two-tone shirt and the guy just like wearing like a fucking like mushroom necklace and a tank top. You know, it's like most likely the drummer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you got to be cozy if you're sitting at the kit.
Yeah, but yeah, that's Oxymoron. Fuck the '90s. Here's our noise. You'll see another version that has like a greenish cover. This is the repress. They changed the artwork on it for whatever reason. I don't know if they had to, but this is also you can get this for cheap. So
right.
if you're interested in those kind of tunes, this is good starter band to check that sound out.
That's
Nice.
fucking sick, man. Mang.
Man.
All right. So that puts it on me. I guess my first official pick, and I guess like you guys, it's not really in order. I just picked 5, and it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Honestly, like there's so many other albums that like, if I had space for like one more that I could have crammed on here, but one that like I couldn't have felt good about this list if this wasn't included is this EP right here.
Okay.
The Fader War. Fucking
I've heard of it. I've
Norway
never actually heard
Hardcore.
that.
What's that?
I've never heard that.
Norway Hardcore 82. So this is like, it's a boot. And I'm pretty sure even this boot is pretty spendy these days. The first time I ever heard this band was back in the day, back in my day. One of my friends, you always had like that older friend, right? That like knew a bit more about music and like was probably more into like some of the more esoteric and not as like well-known bands. Anyway,
Sure.
he made me a tape of the comp that this material originally appeared on. It was a comp called Ingenting for Nord, which came out in 82 as well. And it's like a 4-band comp of Norwegian hardcore. And none of the bands, as far as I know, ever did anything except for the material that was featured on that comp. But of those 4 bands, this stuff is just, it's so vital. It's just crushing, like proto D-beat almost. Like Discharge exists when this came out, but there weren't really any other bands or a lot of other bands playing as fast and as brutal as these guys were in 1982, especially out of Norway. It's fucking killer. It's like in the vein of, early Anti-Cmex, of course, but there's also a lot of Finnish influence, like Turvik Cadet, Radis type influence on here. So, you get that crushing, like imminent D-beat, like rhythms, but like it's also played with like that, like almost like pogo sort of like mentality in parts.
Okay.
Kind of like the old like early Chaos shit.
Yeah, yeah. There's some of that early wrist attach shit too.
Yeah, and like Llama. We're like really big on like that sort of sound. Llama wasn't quite as like brutal, and Llama was Finnish as well. But as far as I know, when it comes to Norwegian shit, like these guys, for me, from the deep dives that I've done, like this album it's essential. And it sucks to say it's essential because it's not an easy find.
Yeah.
Like not whatsoever. I scored.
Yeah,
I found
like,
this at fucking Daybreak of all places. So yeah, this is my first official pick. It's fucking killer. Fader War. Get into
sweet. Yeah, there's not too much Norwegian hardcore, like at least older, that I'm familiar with. Like I got the Svartparad repress recently. So I mean, I was like, I'm not gonna pick that. Like I've listened to it like 3 times. And I had it downloaded for years, but there's a band that I think they were on a little bit later in the 80s, called So Much Hate, that I ordered their 12-inch like last week. Because I remember really liking that when I had like MP3s of it like 10 years ago. Anyways,
didn't Havoc reissue some Svartparad at some point? Or am I thinking of Svart Snow?
Might have been Smart Snow. I'm not sure. Let me see.
I'm not sure. I do know that the comp that Fader War originally came on the Ingenting for Norg or whatever.
I'm sorry. Edit that out.
Oh, that's Smart.
Smart
Yes.
prompted.
Smart prompted. Okay. Yeah, that Ingenting for Norg, like all the bands on it are good, but that comp, if you can find it, like on Discogs, goes for €800, €1,000, somewhere around that, like
One of those.
around that area, give or take.
Yeah,
So it's not it's not attainable.
And if you buy it from Europe, it'll probably cost you another €800 for shipping.
Right, and then you might get it June if you were to do that, like now.
Yeah. I'm still waiting on a DVD that I purchased in October.
Hey, that 3 of 3 Blu-ray or 4 out of 4 Blu-ray that I ordered from Zavvi about 2 months ago that I would assume was lost in the mail showed up today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Moving on.
Up next for me, late 80s, early 90s hardcore band from Finland. Not sure how to pronounce this. Sairaat Mielet. This is 2 7-inches collected on a CD. The first 7-inch on the CD, which is from 91, is the one I like more. The Tappa EP, translated to English, is A Drop Kills. And this band was really interesting because they were very punk. They were very punk looking dudes. And they were very political. They were also militant straight edge. They were like militant straight edge crusty dudes. And their music, pretty singular. You might be able to draw some comparisons to bands that have like really, really adept, like noodly present bass playing, like Iconochrist on their more punky, faster songs, like a little bit, but they pretty much have a sound of their own. Like the vocals are really screechy, kind of like the screechy raw power vocals, or like maybe Charles Bronson vocals, but not as deliberately annoying. And like no shade, love Charlie B, but there's all like weird melodic tinges to it with the bass playing. And they do have like slower parts here and there, but a lot of it's just like breakneck raging hardcore and stuff. And they really like, I'll read a little bit of the back here. Punks are like most people, a bunch of useless rednecks who just conform to rules without question. When they are told to drink, they'll do it. When they're told to do drugs, they'll do it. No matter how stupid, they'll do it. Being different is out of question, but now is the time to obey our rules. You can ram your drugs up your ass, or you can fuck off and die. You'll stick to your drugs. We all know it, just like any other slave. And they were like Mohawk, like fucking punker dudes. I just think that's really interesting. And besides that, like they have really compelling music. You know, it's not like,
right.
You know, just for a novelty or something. Like they just happen to be super militant straight edge punks. And I guess they played, the States, like they did a small US tour, and I think they played Western Mass, Jason. So like I think they played like with like Last in Line or something like that. So
what's
that's
that band again. I'm gonna write that down because I want to listen to that. I've never heard this before. So.
Sairaat Mielet. I'm fucking terrible with any kind of like Scandinavian pronunciation. Like
okay.
I'll make sure that we have like, you know, like extensive information.
Because that's cool.
In the description box below.
That's cool because I'm 2 for 2 now with bands. Well, actually 3.
Yeah, I haven't. That's a release I've never heard of at all.
Yeah.
I'm not the band. Never heard of at all.
I'm pretty sure Cooch told me about these guys, Jason.
That makes sense.
I mean, I could be wrong because I don't remember the name of the band, but he's like, yeah, they're these crusty dudes, and they were like militant straight edge, and they were from Europe, and like, who else would that be?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they're the band that played like Western Mass, and they played with like Police Line from Albany and like I think Last in Line or something like that. I don't know.
Well,
weird times, but yeah, they were around from. These records are from like they were around from 89 to 93, so that might not add up timeline wise. So I don't know. Ask Cooch. We'll figure it out. He'll know.
There was a thing for a while there where I don't know if it was someone who either worked in like Denmark or was from Denmark and moved to Western Mass and was like funneling, because it's going to play into one of my choices later, where it was a 7-inch that came out by a band from Denmark, and it was like a random Western Mass label put it out. And it was like, how does this? There's some sort of weird connect, and this is pre-super internet too, so it's definitely someone knew them.
Yeah, well, there was also that label Cadmium Sick that I think were from Western Mass, and they put out that Heartwork, that Japanese hardcore band 7-inch. There's like ties to like Japanese stuff like pretty early on in that scene, because you know people were fans of that out there and stuff. So
it's Western Massachusetts. There's not a lot going on. No offense, guys.
I'm not from there, so I'm not offended.
So my next one's a classic one, but I don't want to feel like I'm gaffing it from one of you guys from your list.
Go ahead.
All right.
I only have like one classic on mine. The rest are kind of oddball picks.
So I'll see the reaction here, because I think one of you guys might have this one. I have a bunch of releases from this band, so we're just going to dive in. Italy. Go with Raw Power.
No. Almost. I thought about it, and I was like,
This is great.
My relationship with Raw Power started really late. So
yeah, mine too, to be honest with you. Like, these are all like, actually all these have been bought within the last like probably 4 or 5 years for me. Like, I just know
the CD has seen a lot of moves. I've had this with me for a while. This has After Your Brain and Screams from the Gutter on the same CD. After Your Brain, which I ended up flipping, which I regret. I mean, it's not as good as Screams, but I flipped it. It was one of the first, like, I've talked on my channel numerous times about the local record store in Syracuse. Some punker dude that was like a bartender sold like 100 of his LPs, and me and my friends dived on them because there was like, we could never find records like that. And it was all like JFA, Raw Power, Broken Bones, like Crucial Youth. And the Jerry's Kids, like I have like, and they were all like $3 for an LP. This is in like 1997. But anyway, sorry, I don't want to.
No, it's okay. So, you know, for those who don't know, Raw Power are an Italian hardcore band. I'm trying to, you guys might be able to describe this a little bit better than I can. So they were a hardcore band that definitely mixed in like these dudes knew how to play their instruments. Like, it wasn't just like 1, 2, 3, 4. But it also was, you know, like it was the best of both worlds. There's definitely
I feel like that's not like I feel like that applies to a lot of the Italian hardcore.
Yeah.
Came about during that time.
Because this came out, so Screams from the Gutter came out in 1985, and in America in 85, you have the dying off of the first wave of American hardcore, which basically morphed into just like as fast as we physically can get, to started going into the crossover and the more like then like hardcore, like the stripped down hardcore went away from super lightning fast and went into like Slapshot. So it was like, you know, everything, there was like all these things were kind of, and I feel like Raw Power just kind of takes all that and just crams it into one thing, and it works. They also have 8 million releases, so you guys can, like, the first one I ever heard, to be honest with you, was that last one that came out on CD. I think Beer City did it. I can't remember what it was called. It has like that reverse negative cover.
Oh, and, yeah.
It's got like a million songs on it too. That's the first I ever heard, and then I backtracked. I bought this one in Vegas from Headline Records. They had a booth at a fest I went to. This one came from a local store around here. This is their second LP. This has way more metally influence than this one does,
yeah,
for
big
sure.
time.
And then this also has another cover. That's why that one might look weird. This is like the Europress, I believe.
Yeah, I've seen that cover before. It's a weird.
Yeah, it's definitely. It does not sound like what it looks like. I can tell you.
Did you see? Have you seen that? Was the pressing of It screams from the gutter with like a dog. It's like a German
That's the
Shepherd or
LP.
something on the front of it.
Unfortunately, that's the LP pressing that I have, which is why I didn't pull it. I pulled my CD of it because no way am I showing off that piece of shit cover.
And then this is a recent repress on FOAD that's just like the "You Are the Victim" record and a demo.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's sick.
So with like a nice little cover. And then I also
FOAD doing the Lord's work.
Yeah. And then I also have 2 copies of WAP Hour, which is funny because this will be a little quick Jason story. So I bought this at the same fest in Vegas. I was hammered and I was like, oh shit, they have a copy of WAP Hour. And it's $5. It's a repress. I don't own a copy yet. So I bought this drunk. And then the next day I went back and they had an actual original press. So I bought this. So within 2 days, I went from owning 0 copies of WAP Hour to owning 2. And then the other best
Classic.
part, the band photos on these are great. Like look at you got your striped, you got your GBH shirt with like your striped like disco party pants. And then you got an OG Discharge shirt right there. And then my favorite of all time, you have polka dot shirt, blue leather jacket.
Yes.
That's a tight look. Such a tight look.
That's a look.
Yeah.
That's a choice. That look is a choice.
And then
was like Chromie D was talking about
and
ECP choices.
Yeah. And then it was Giuseppe who passed away, right? Was that Giuseppe who passed away? Had a heart attack or so. I mean, it was a while ago. But this is a band that put out a lot of material, toured a bunch, toured like so much, and like in the
They
US.
toured the US a lot.
Back when it wasn't easy to really tour the US, especially from another country. It has a lot of material, but I also feel like this band, for like, I don't want to say layman because that might come off as being a dick, but I feel like for the newer, younger hardcore kid, a band like Raw Power is like a deep cut. Like they're not listening to this.
Right. When I was younger coming up, like I knew of Raw Power. You know, I think a lot of people did. But like everybody I knew who was really into Raw Power were also like the same people who were into like really into Beyond Possession or fucking like Sacrilege BC.
Yeah.
Like that weird like, you know, like crossover like almost. And like I wasn't really a crossover kid until I started like grasping a full appreciation for thrash. And I think at that point I just kind of forgot about Raw Power. So
Yeah.
they didn't really come back up on my radar until, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. And yeah.
They're always a band for me whenever I've met like an older hardcore dude, and like you mentioned Raw Power, and they're just like, oh yeah, no shit, Raw Power. Yeah, like I fuck like someone like Keith Bennett probably loves Raw Power.
Yeah.
You know?
For me, they were a band that I was introduced to via like 90s crusty bands. Like, because I grew up in upstate and I saw Devoid of Faith a bunch of times and they covered State Oppression. And I was like, well, that song fucking rules. I like to hear that band. And then I found that After Your Brain LP, I'm like, this isn't as raging as whatever record that cover came off of. And also Whorehouse of Representatives.
Yeah.
I can't say that name without giggling. Whorehouse of Representatives on the split with Toxic Narcotic, I think covered the same song.
Yeah, Seattle Heroes, man.
Yeah, they also covered Raw Power. I'm not sure if it was State Oppression or not. It was a long time ago. I haven't had that 7-inch in a long time. But it was through that. And then like throughout the mid 2000s, all my friends in Syracuse, like the guys in Black Sheep Squadron and that little group of people were like super into Raw Power. So like we were all into it. And a lot of people repped this one, which is the Grand Theft Audio, everything. This is like everything before Screams from the Gutter, like all the demos and stuff. The Burning the Factory. And some of the stuff on here is really rough, but it's like really fucking raging. It's not as slickly played, like it's a little bit more like wild and loose, but it's fucking rad. 83 demo. There's a bunch of live tracks, Black Flag cover, Discharge cover. They cover White Minority and Hell on Earth. But anyway, so that's my relationship with that band. So I got into them pretty early on. They were like one of the first, like going outside of the Victory Records bubble that I was trapped in growing up, like one of my first excursions outside of it, I'd say.
And it's
Nice.
cool too. It's cool too on here because it has their address. So maybe I'll write them a letter with a self-addressed stamped envelope. Try to get
That's
something.
sassy.
Yeah.
See what
Also,
happens.
for the real vinyl nerds here, it looks like they made a mistake with the record and they had put a sticker on it that says Stereo 45 Talk 006. So they must have mislabeled it when they pressed it. But anyways, that's Raw Power. Another band which, if there's any Utes watching this that want to get into them, I mean, you really don't have to try to find Raw Power stuff. Like it shouldn't. It's not hard.
No.
Fucking crucial. All right, so my next one is one that comparatively based off of everything else that I pulled. This is kind of a new one. This is something I didn't really discover until like I was kind of deep diving Disclose and really like digging into a lot of the stuff that Kawakami was really into during his lifetime, as far as being a record collector and specifically like a D-beat record collector. So I went ahead and I pulled this. It's one of their, I think it's their second EP. When I got this, like this is pretty much all I listened to for like a month. Was this fucking MG15 Chaos Finale Spanish D-beat from 1983 is when this demo came out. This was repressed though. This is La Vida es en Nous and Throne Records collaboration. I don't know what year this version came out, but this stuff is just savage. But it also sounds like, I don't know, I'm hard pressed to really think of a lot of other bands, at least from '83 out of Spain. There's a lot of like Italian influence in here. So like fucking Indigesti, clearly, I wouldn't say Raw Power, but like more of that like really fast Italian, like Near Orgasmo or like fucking I'm drawing blanks on more right now. There's plenty more though. The Italian hardcore scene is insane. And you hear a lot of that influence on this, as well as a lot of that Scandi influence. It doesn't really sound like Discharge. Honestly, it's more akin to like Anti-Cemex, I guess, or like maybe even elements of fucking Totalitar on here. But it's brutal, it's crushing, it's really, really like urgent. And I should have done a little bit more research as to like what the Spanish government looked like at the time that this came out. I have a feeling it was really reflective of that. I think it was still probably recovering from like the Spanish Civil War in a way at that point in time. I could be wrong. I know that was like, a decade or two prior, but or not more than that. But as far as like the fascism in Spain, I don't know. It's fucking great though. It's been, since copying this, it's like honestly probably one of the Euro releases that I reach for more often than just about anything else. It's fucking killer. If you are a D-beat fanatic, a D-beat stan, and you don't have this in your life, you need it. There's still like, I think they're still around, maybe with like one original member. They did a split with Discharge in the early 2000s, which would have been a different lineup for both bands than what's on this. They had an EP that came out before this, which is a lot punkier, so it's way less crusty and way less like thrashy than this record. And then they have a full length that came out like 92 or 93, which is like really weird. Like it's a weird album. It's not D-beat really. I would almost compare it to like like what Doom was doing when they put out like the weird Doom record that came out. I can't think of the name of it. It had like that like 15-minute long like weird industrial song on it. I can't think of the title. I had a CD copy of it back in the day, and I was like, this isn't fuck Peaceville Doom. Like this, what is this shit?
Don't you love when that happens?
Kind of reminiscent of that. It's like, but it's also very 90s. So it's it's a totally different sort of sound than what you hear on this. This is just raw political fucking scathing stuff. It's fucking sick.
I added it to my want list. That's what I was just doing on my phone. I've added everything I've heard about tonight, but don't know. I added to my Discogs want list.
Yeah, that was one of Kawakami's favorites too. That based off of what I read, like that was a band that he like really like sang the praises of, like amongst tape traders and whatnot back when he was still alive.
Still reeling from the Franco regime and just fucking pissed.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. My next one is from the Netherlands. The Dutch folks, BGK.
Oh yeah.
The white male dominance 7-inch. I think this is a legit reissue. I'm not sure. Balthazar Gerard's Commando, I think is the name, but I mean, raging fast, super tight hardcore. I actually have the Dutch Feast like Alternative Tentacles double LP discography as well that has all their records. They're so on point and just like brimming over with piss and vinegar and energy. And I like that like they're kind of halfway to being sort of like almost like an MDC or early DRI American hardcore, but also very European as well. I
have I have the 2 full lengths. I don't have that EP, but I've got the 2 full lengths.
Yeah, the EP is great. Yeah, I mean, it's just as raging as the other ones. Like it's all relatively along the same lines. All of it's awesome. Not really too much else to say than that. Just fucking great hardcore. I think they were part of that network of friends deal, like that cross Atlantic deal, like friends with Heresy and Laram was part of it too, and Ripcord and all that. So people that kind of, the Europeans that picked up the hardcore ball and ran with it when Americans were dicking around with like trying to be AC/DC or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
SSD?
Man, the new album rules.
There's a new SSD right now. Just kidding.
Not yet. It's SS December, man. You know that.
SSDC.
That's another record which I don't own a physical copy of. I think all my BGK stuff is either on a tape or it's like I stole it off the internet. Like I own no physical releases from them, which I probably should change. Maybe Santa will buy
too, but this is the
double.
I got this for real cheap too. This was like $10 or something, but it's just the LPs and the 7-inch. Yeah. Jonestown Aloha, White Male Dominance, and Nothing Can Go Wrong. And
is that a fan club or is a
no? Came out on Alternative Tentacles.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yeah.
I find a lot of times with when especially with European bands, when like stuff like that comes out, it's the nice way to say bootleg. It's a fan club where it's just like,
oh yeah,
you can't find the
7 edition.
Yeah, you can't find these 7 inches anywhere. So fuck it. The recording quality is gonna be garbage, but you can get them all on one LP. It might be at the wrong speed, but
I've just ordered a bunch of Japanese records like that. So
really?
That's like all of my Confuse is a fan club edition.
Yeah.
I just ordered 2 different fan club edition Confuse semi discographies.
But those Confuse records, like it doesn't really matter if it's on the right speed because it just is fucking noise and chaos. Like
especially Spending Loud Night, which is the only record I have. That record's so ridiculous. Like the fuck's going on?
It's almost like I love it, but it's also almost unlistenable.
Yeah, you got to be in a certain mood for sure.
There's actually a label. I believe it's out of Italy. I've shown their own multiple copies of things they've put out that has made a just the whole label exists on being a fan club label where they're like, here's 7 inches this band put out on an LP. No rhyme or reason. It can be a 20-year span, but here's everything on one LP. And they just constantly press these. No inserts, nothing, bare bones. And I buy them. Like I bought them and not realized it, and like gotten home, been like putting my records like in a my new box, and I flip it over and I'm like, oh fuck, another release from this label. I know this is gonna be like literally probably the worst sound quality, no insert, nothing to look at, like just like fucking here's 7 inches on an LP, and it's like I won't name the label. Just watch my videos, you'll see them.
Make another video.
Yeah, someday we'll see. Okay, my turn.
Yeah, man.
So my next 3 releases actually have a thread, because in my research, which I believe I knew this, but I just wasn't admitting it to myself. In my research for this, all 3 of these bands not only come from the same general area or the same city, or it could be the kind of thing where like, you know, bands say they're from Boston, but they're from outside Boston. But we're going to go over to, we're going to head on over to Copenhagen, Denmark. And so I'll filter these next 3 in to close it out, but all 3 of them have shared members, or at least one member, or one guy was in one band and not in the other, but all 3 of these bands come from the same general group of people, and they all sound different. So
I thought it was going to be Umeå.
No, I almost did. Are we going to go there with you, or
no? Because I thought you were going to do it, so I didn't. What are you going to do?
All right, so we're in Copenhagen right now. It's the late 90s, early 2000s. And this band existed. This is Amdi Petersen's Arme. This band literally only put out 2 EPs. This is a discography. Have you seen this, Pat?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a discography LP thing that they put out a while ago, which just contains, it's basically everything they did. I believe it's got the 2 demos. It's got a weird 7-inch I've never heard of. It's got unreleased stuff. It's just everything you need on this wonderful packaging. Now, this band was, if you take early 80s American hardcore and put it in Copenhagen, that's what this band is. This is boots with chains on them, just some hardcore punk, just straightforward hardcore punk. Nice. Saw them once. It ruled. No, fuck. But the best part about this is it comes with this bad Larry right here, which is literally everything you need to know about this band. Flyers, photos. There's a tour diary in here. It's funny because they talk about the Boston show and the tour diary that came with this. I thought someone was calling me. But yeah, 98 to 2002, this band existed, and they ripped a hole from 98 to 2002. Like they were this is just great American. It's USHC from Copenhagen. That's just like the best way I can describe it.
That's another one I've never heard of.
Yeah,
it's they're great.
Great.
I always liken their sound to like really early DC hardcore with like maybe like super like overproduced, like How Could Hell Be Any Worse, Bad Religion-y kind of LA hardcore. Like they reminded me of the Teen Idols, like that Year and 7 Inches comp, like SOA, Teen Idols, like the really early DC hardcore stuff. What's that?
It's like they got a copy of that and they were like, we can start a band that sounds like this.
Yeah, and maybe like a little bit of California in there too. I don't know. I'm whatever, but it definitely sounds very like early 80s American. Like, yeah, you think of the Circle Jerks guy for sure. Circle Jerks mascot.
Yeah. I mean, it's rad. Like the photo on the back here. So
yeah.
Also, not to bum everyone out, but none of this is in English either. So you can get over it. I did. But that's Amdi Petersen's Arme. This is just a discography. But if you were going to go for anything, if you just want to find out about this band, I'll just buy this. Like, don't go hunting down the 2.
I'm going to add that. I'll be adding that to my list very shortly.
I think this might be a little bit expensive, though. Not because of rarity, because it's an import. And I just don't think it was really distroed well in the U.S.
That's the case with a lot of these things, man. Like a lot. I have one when the last one I think that I'll probably pull is one of those scenarios for sure.
But yeah, Amdi Petersen's Army.
Red.
At home.
Oh,
Looking cool. So I guess it means it's my turn. Oh, maybe. Oh my god. It's almost a disaster. So what I end up doing with a lot of these like lists is I just kind of end up going back to like what was really like influential on me in my formative years, I guess. There were some things that I thought about including that one band in particular from like the last 10 years, another Spanish band, Una Bestia Incontrolable. But I didn't put them on the list because I don't know if they've got the longevity yet. I think they do, but I'm not sure. So this is kind of like an old one, but it's not their first record, which I also love. I was really torn as to whether I wanted to include their first full length or this one. This one was just a lot more like informed, kind of more the person that I was like becoming, at least as far as my musical interests at the time, like kind of like moving away from like the simplicity of like apolitical like American hardcore to like more of like an international scene, I guess. You know, reading a lot of Profane Existence at the time and whatever else I could get my hands on, honestly. So yeah, that'd be
Boom.
The Brain by Hiatus, which this was, 1996, put out by Skuld and Profane Existence. Their second full-length LP. It's not really a full-length, though. It's more of an EP, honestly. Like, it's really fucking short. I guess you could call it D-beat, but I think that's, like, doing it a disservice. Like, it's D-beat in the same way, which is another band that I almost put on here, that I kind of was introduced to around the same time. Homo Militia, with their fucking
Band, right?
the Your Body, Your Choice LP. You know, a lot of people just label it as D-beat, but I feel like it's a lot more like cerebral, almost, I want to say.
Yeah. Just because it has a D-beat elements or like a lot of D-beat style rhythms doesn't mean it's like pure D-beat.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's crushing, and this is absolutely crushing. But it's smart, and like you can tell, like they can play their instruments, which I think was the case with a lot of bands that Skuld was releasing around that time. Was like a lot of those guys like looked like crusty fucking gutter rats, but like could actually play the guitar or the bass or the drums.
Sure.
And like keep up with people in like, you know, formative musical training. So I don't know, this is just a scathing release. When I first heard this was probably 96 when it came out. I went to our local, we would go to our local record shop like once or twice a month because it was in Seattle. We were on the east side. This place called Fallout Records. It was super small. Probably one of the smallest record shops I've ever been into in my life. But they stocked a lot of shit. That's where I got introduced to like a lot of what kind of like melded my young brain at the time into the music that I got into, whether it was just getting into straight up punk because they had that too, or getting into crust, or getting into smarter shit. Like this is almost like, it's almost proggy, like progressive D-beat. Is that
interesting?
I don't know. It's fucking, it's amazing. It's Hiatus, legendary Belgian band. You know, they did splits with like Doom and Battle of Disarm, and their discography's one of those like you look at it and you're like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to amass all of this as a collector.
Yeah, I have the split with Doom, which is great. That's all I own.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The debut, the album, the full length that came before this, it's more straight ahead DB, which I think is why this ended up labeled like that. But like they used to have like, you know, the crusty Hiatus name, and then they just went to like the Courier font, you know, the all caps Courier font. It rules, man. This is one of my favorite, not just one of my favorite Euro hardcore releases, one of my favorite hardcore releases ever. Like, this is a record that I lost my collection back in 2001, but once I started collecting again, it's one of the first records that I rebought. It's just one of those records that, like, as a fan of punk music and just music in general, I've never wanted to be without this album. So even before I started buying records again, I always had, like, you know, MP3s or whatever, like bad MP3s from Soulseek, and before that from Kazaa of Hiatus material. Shit's fucking killer. And again, you know, I try not to throw around the essential tag too often, but I think this stuff kind of is.
And they're from Liège. Okay. Yeah. I remember like traveling around Europe, and I didn't even make it to Belgium ever, but I remember a lot of people, like, Liège was like the squat, like the crusty utopia, like where a lot of people would go. Like, I remember Bill from Toxic Narcotic being like, dude, you go to Liège, Belgium, you're going to get too fucked up to even know what's going on. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Bill.
that's where they came from. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a big scene. I know that, I think they had, like, if I'm not mistaken, Fleas and Lice was from there too.
Yeah. No, Fleas and Lice were Belgian. No, not Belgian. Weren't they from the Netherlands?
Yeah, maybe. I could be completely fucking
I think Fleas
confused.
and Lice were like members from the Netherlands and from the UK.
Okay. Good
They
chance of that.
They were part of that whole, like, they were part of that whole, like, flat earth scene, which was like super incestuous, like Fleas and Lice, Mushroom Attack, and fucking like Disaffect.
And there was all the UK bands too, like Witch Knot and like Headache.
Fucking, Sedition is another one.
Sedition. Yep.
Yeah.
Skaha.
Skazda. Skafa.
I've got one of their 2 LP discography in my Discogs card. I got to pull the trigger on that sooner or later. That band was great too.
Pull the trigger.
Oh, one of the things, Eric, though, I noticed is, like, if there's any hardcore or punk that comes out that's a little bit heavier, everyone just likes to throw, like, the DB tag on it. Like,
it's true. DB. Oh yeah,
that's just DB.
Yeah, DB. For sure.
And it's like,
yeah.
Because
is it though? Is it?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with me. It's like I've had people tell me stuff's hardcore, and I'm like, oh no, I kind of think that's DB. And I've also had people tell me stuff's DB, and I'm like, that's just a fucking hardcore band.
Well, DB is hardcore.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Like
that's like all crust is D beat and all D beat is hardcore. Like, I mean,
I'm just gonna start really like pop D beat ska band.
I mean, I guess somebody's got to do it. I don't know.
Is it? I mean, doesn't that apply to like Choking Victim and fucking?
Man.
Okay. I'm off.
Not like Choking Victim. All right. So, Jason picked Raw Power. I had Raw Power picked. But I think I was looking through my LPs that are right in front of me, and I was like thinking more of hardcore bands, but I was like, fuck it, I'll just go with more of a straight up punk band. French band. This is part of that Oliver's Hall. That was the record store that had the sale of all those LPs from that guy that I have like at least 20 LPs in my collection. And this is an odd one, but like this band did a lot of stuff and were a big deal in France. However that's supposed to be pronounced. Berurier Noir. You'll see this is the guys in the band. They've got masks. There's a dude with a saxophone. They have like a clown like circus theme, like long before ICP people. You've even got like the skeleton version of the Circle Jerks guy, and this is like super catchy, like street punk oi with like a saxophone a la X-Ray Specs. Lyrics all in French, and I've heard other releases of theirs that like really fall flat because they don't. I think on this it's a drum machine. You can't really tell on this so much. Maybe they have a real drummer with like a lot of effects on the drums. I'm not sure. I tracked down a couple of their other releases on cassette a while back and like flipped them all because they sounded horrible to me. But this EP, Ils Veulent Nous, Tuer. I'm so sorry, French people that might be watching. None of you. This EP like is fucking amazing. It's like a 7-song EP, and like they even go into like the circus, like dun, 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 and it doesn't suck. It's amazing. Like it's so rad. And I don't know much about what's that.
I said I'm pretty sold on that already.
Yeah, it's super fun. And I toured. I went on like 3 dates in Ireland with a French band, a Parisian band called La Fraction. And I know it's pronounced differently, and that's my terrible American pronunciation of it sucks. But this band La Fraction, who were great, did a couple of records. And I was talking to them about French bands. I was like, with what little I knew at the time, I was like, oh, like Les Thugs, and do you know Berurier, Noir? And they're like, oh yeah, they were great. They were super important in the Paris scene for like uniting punks and skins. Like, and you know, like in the 80s, like that was a thing. Like those two tribes beat the shit out of each other. So like that's cool. And it's a fun record. Man. Yeah. But
that's awesome.
That's what I decided to use as a placeholder from Screams from the Gutter, since I mean, Stone Cold classic, awesome, love it. One thing I would add to about that real quick is those fucking shrieking vocals are completely possessed sounding.
Yeah.
On the like they like wow, like for hardcore, like vocals that extreme, like what else you got? Like Die Kreutzen and like maybe United Mutation or something like that, as far as like voice box like jumping out of your throat kind of shit. But
I'm still kicking myself for not snagging that United Mutation, the Radio Rahim reissue.
Is it sold out?
Probably, I mean, I imagine it's still available somewhere, but
I guarantee you Chris has copies of it. The guy who runs
I didn't grab it because I have another discography LP thing from like a while back, and I just was like, I got other stuff I want to buy, which
Eric,
I kind of kick myself for too now that I think about it. But
I mean, well, actually, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll ask Chris if he has him. I talk to him all the time.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Like I'll ask him because I've asked him for Painkiller and about Painkiller and Radio Rahim stuff, and I mean, not like anything rare. He's not like giving it away, but I'm like, hey, do you have any of these lying around? And I've gotten them from him. Like I've paid for them, but you know.
Oh yeah. That'd be hype.
All right, we're still in Copenhagen over here. Same era as the last band, but a completely different sound. I'm gonna go with the Young Wasteners. We Got Ways LP. This came out in 2003. This is, again, there is an American influence on here. Have you ever heard this, Pat?
No, I know the name. I've heard of them, but
I've never heard of it either.
There's still an American hardcore influence on this, but this is way more California than this is like super. It's
looks like it.
It's melodic, but like singer with a beret and a leather jacket with a dangly earring.
Yeah, and the logo even looks like the Wasted Youth logo. Like
yeah. But this LP is great. This is on the same label that did the Amdi Petersen's Arme. It's I don't know how to pronounce it. Hernspind, HJERNESPIND. It's a Copenhagen label. The original one came out on the original. So when this first came out, this record was super expensive, not because of rarity, because in 2003 you just couldn't buy this. Like you couldn't roll into Newbury Comics here in Massachusetts or New England and find this in the punk section. You had to mail order it. And I actually bought this from Felix von Havoc out of his distro behind a show at Regen when it was in Austin. And I remember I pulled this out because I saw it. I saw this and I knew what it was because I've been looking for one. And pre-PayPal. So if I bought this before, I'd have to send a money order to fucking Copenhagen, and I might get my record 90 fucking years later after spending $50 for it. And I pulled it out, and I remember it was like $30. And Felix immediately looked over, and he saw me looking at it, and he like comes over and he goes, "Hey man, I just want to let you know, I'm not ripping you off, but those cost me so much money. I'm so sorry I have to charge." I'm like, dude, I'm gonna buy it. You don't have to like I know you're not like. He's just like, dude, they caught like I got like 5 or 6 of them. If I sell them for $30, I'm literally making $4. He's like, I gotta do he's like, I feel bad. And I was like, I don't care. Like
what a fucking king, man. Like,
champion.
But so it comes with this cool insert. So they were more of like a snotty, I would definitely say a snotty a snotty punk band, super melodic. There's a saxophone in one song. There's songs in English. There's also actually I think everything on this is in English. Here's a little tie-in right here. You got maybe this dude right here is wearing an Omni Petersen Army shirt. So again, but you got lyrics. What do we got here? They told you what reality was, walking out the door to see the same streets and people as the day before. This deja vu existence leaves no time to grow. You've got ideas, but no friends, so you'll be marching on. So it's just, I would say they listen. Army Petersen's Army went to the DC fast stuff. This is a way more melodic, but not like pop punk melodic, but just way more like actual, you can understand the lyrics and everything's just not like songs are over 2 minutes long.
Right.
But it's great. This is honestly one of my favorite LPs of all time. I still don't own an original press. I only own on this label. They've gone down in price, but every single time I find them, they're never in the US, so shipping will cost me more than the record. So I haven't bitten the bullet on it yet. But it's called We Got Ways, the band's Young Wasteners. Like I said earlier, this is beret, leather jacket, dangly earring, and 2003 punk, hardcore punk.
That's killer.
Jack Diddley.
Like if you like Regulations.
Yep.
Like it's in that vein.
Okay.
Gotcha.
A little faster, I would say.
Nice. All right, well, guess that's me. Pick number 4. The glare on this is probably going to suck.
Oh, is it called Contropotere?
Contropotere. With their 3rd album, I want to say.
Nice.
Unskulled, released 1991. I've had a very long relationship with this album. The nice gatefold. Some crazy BDSM shit going on in there. 1991, Scold put this out. I don't think this was before they had an agreement with Profane Existence. It's almost like I hesitated to include this because it's almost not even hardcore anymore, or like not even punk anymore. It's super avant-garde. I mean, the first track, there's definitely a lot of like, you'll hear like reminiscences of punk. But I mean, then they break down and do like a weird homage to 21st Century Schizoid Man in the first track, which rules. This is actually the album that, like, because of that, I got turned on to King Crimson at the time. It was probably about 1994 that I first heard this record, and it was a bunch of my friends and I. We were buddies with a band out of like the east side of Seattle called 2 Minutes Hate. They were they were not huge like regionally, but locally they were like one of those bands that like we went to like every show because they put on such an amazing performance, especially for like a 16, 17, 18-year-old, like going to like a local gig at like a fucking all ages club. They were killer. And they had a lot in common with like Crucifix, Christ on Parade, but Neurosis as well. And we were all chilling. We were talking to it was another one of the early bands to use like 3 vocalists, like 3 just vocalists on stage. They didn't play any instruments. They were just vocalists. And there were 3 of them, and they were always on the stage. So we were hanging out with one of the vocalists and talking about their Neurosis influence, and he was like, I don't even like Neurosis. Neurosis fucking sucks. And I was like, well, what's the Neurosis influence from? He's like, oh, that's fucking Dave. Dave was one of the guitar players. He's like, Dave fucking wants to have the Neurosis's babies. You guys ever heard this band from Italy called Contropotere? And we're like, no. And the dude had a massive record collection. It was like an international record collection as well. So he's like, he was ordering from Kleister like directly in the early 90s, and he had like all the Havoc shit. And whatever. He had basically everything. And we were all like, no, we never heard of some Italian band called, what'd you, Contropotere? Like, no, it's Contropotere. That's how he talked. My impression is actually pretty bad. So we're like, well, can we hear it? And he played it. And it fucking just like blew our minds. Like simultaneously and collectively, we were all just, our jaws were on the floor listening to this music. Because we'd all heard Neurosis, like Souls at Zero, which was another like mind melter. Like I bought Neurosis Souls at Zero because I liked Pain of Mind. I hadn't heard the middle album yet, and it was an Alternative Tentacles. So I'm like, I kind of thought I knew what I was going to get with that record, and I listened to it and I was like, I love this, but it is not at all what I was primed to hear.
Right.
So this was,
I bought both of those simultaneously. I bought Pain of Mind and Souls at Zero the same trip to Record Town, and like, because they were both like, I'd heard of them, I'd been reading MRR, they were both on Alternative Tentacles. At the time I was into punk, and I was also super into like Paradise Lost and My Dying Bride, and I knew that some of their stuff was kind of adjacent to that, somewhat, sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
But like listening to them back to back, I was like, oh, all right, no.
This album is, this thing is just a fucking, it's a mind fuck, man. It's like equal parts like Euro crust and hardcore with like progressive rock elements, industrial and like psych rock, like all kind of like merging into the same recording. And it's amazing. It's another record that like is one that has so much importance to me that I've always wanted a copy of this in my collection, even if like I didn't have anything else. It's absolutely like one of those records where you can listen to it and you know, like when I first heard this record, it was a pivotal point in my impressionable youth that would go on to help shape me having an open mind to shit that wasn't punk rock at the time, or wasn't thrash metal, or wasn't grindcore. Yeah, it's just fucking absolutely awesome. I'm not as familiar with a lot of their other stuff. Like I'm familiar with the album before this one, which I think you just ordered, Pat.
I just got it actually.
Oh, you just got it.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit familiar with that one and one or two of their
This is
EPs.
their first, I believe.
Yeah, that fucking record's great. But this is the one that I'm like really familiar with, and it's just fucking phenomenal. It rules.
One that I have had for a long time is the 7-inch EP. Well, they might have more than one, but the one that I have is a 7-inch called Solo Selvaggi.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, Jason, did you ever? I don't know if you were going to shows, but I don't know if you ever went to Below Zero Records in Alston. You ever heard of that place?
No, I don't think it doesn't. I mean, I might have gone, but it's not.
It was a really good, like, it was a record store, but it was basically like a dude's huge distro and like a small, like it was like in the Alston Mall, which was like upstairs on Harvard Ave, like above what was that, whatever that coffee place was that used to be a Harold's, like that block of Harvard Ave. Like it was this dude Joe, and he had kind of limited hours and stuff, but like I got so much good shit there. I got like that first Sadistic Intent 7-inch, which I fucking sold for some stupid reason. That's like $200 now. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it anyway. But I got that Contropotere record because a dude I knew like mentioned it, and I was like, that looks interesting. And I remember listening to it and being like, this is like Nausea if they went way off the deep end with like the tribal drums and like
right.
Even that 7-inch alone like has a lot of those elements that you talk about, the industrial stuff and kind of the prog rock shit, but also a bit of crust. So yeah. Super forward thinking, cool band for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And another one that like I hate throwing it out, but I think it's kind of essential. Like if you want to like be exposed to something that's a little bit more progressive or like on a different sort of level, I guess, than what just like your meat and potatoes. And there's nothing wrong with meat and potatoes shit. Like I have plenty of it in my collection, but that one is, it's not an easy listen initially, especially if you're not like ready for what it's gonna sound like. But it rules. Fucking awesome.
Like, look at this picture of them on the back.
Yeah, and the out of the back of their van with their dogs.
Yep, they got their German shepherds. Dude's ripping a butt in a
What
leather
year?
trench coat. It's fucking
What year
rad.
was that?
90s.
The one I just showed was 91. That's probably 90.
90 or 89. I don't know. Let's see if there's a date in here somewhere.
They were like a full-on like anarcho like squatter collective too. Like
yeah, they were like missing foundation, but less likely to beat the shit out of you for no good reason or something.
They're like Chumbawamba.
Yeah. Yeah,
Shit
interesting, cool shit.
and very Italian, which is another thing.
Very.
I think one of the things that I really like about the Italian hardcore scene is that like regardless of what variation of like punk or hardcore or crust, like you can kind of tell that it's Italian.
Yeah, for sure. Metal too, like all the kind of theatric, like sort of, all all the pageantry involved with like all the Italian doom and shit. Like it's very distinct in what it does.
Yep,
for sure.
All right.
All right.
What are we on? We're on our 5th picks.
This is number 1 for me. And like, yeah, no particular order except for this one. Like, because this is Acme. We're going back to Germany to reduce to the choir of one soloist. I heard this at such a time, like I didn't like stuff like this that much. Like I was a kid that would like at the time that this came across my path, I was about 19. I was not living in a punk house. I was living in a straight edge house. And I was very not straight edge at the time. I was straight edge at other points in my life, not then. It was like a 3-floor, like massive 7-bedroom like house in the university area of the town I grew up in. And the one kid who like had everything under his name was like, well, we want more people crammed in here, so it costs less to live here. We have a foosball table in our dining room that you can sleep under. Actually, I mean, I more electively decided to sleep under the foosball table. I was like, I'm going to make this into a fort. And that's where I lived for like a couple of months. But everybody I lived with were like people that were involved with like the first like Hellfests that happened in Syracuse and stuff, like that dude Keith and like the guy who sang for Black Sheep Squadron. And so it was like all these hardcore kids. And at that time, like that metalcore thing, I mean, we're talking 1998, 97, 98. So it was like brand new. It hadn't fused with like emo yet. And there wasn't all the like the pretty like swoopy hair shit hadn't happened yet. It was literally like straight edge kids getting really good at playing their instruments and like learning like Morbid Angel and Slayer riffs. And there was a lot of stuff coming out of Europe. A lot of people talk up all that Hate Thousand stuff, which I haven't really dug into that much. But that stuff is cool. Like there were some good bands out of that. But the one thing that like got passed on to me that stuck with me was this record. And I know Mike Seatown's talked about this too. And this came out on Edison Recordings, which was a Pennsylvania label. This guy, John Dudek, great label, put out a lot of, I mean, very like groundbreaking, put out Coalesce and a bunch of other Overcast, you know, a lot of flagship bands of that genre. And Acme sounds like, I always feel like it just sounds like it was recorded in hell. It's completely suffocating. To me, it's a scarier, heavier, more evil record than most black metal records I've heard. And I stand by that statement. It sounds like a head-on collision between the scariest moments from Rorschach, from like their second record, Protestant, to like colliding with like South of Heaven, like the real creepy South of Heaven Slayer kind of stuff, and like maybe some like the slower crushing like Bolt Thrower and Napalm Death shit. And it's kind of in a bit of a like a slightly distorted fog of like, there's just like a kind of like a noisy element over all of it. And the dude's screaming like he's in pain. He doesn't sound like a guy who's imitating his idea of what a demon is. He sounds like a human being that's like in a lot of pain and frustration and fucking rage. Like the guy's vocals, his screams are beyond compare. And it just, I mean, I discovered at the time, I was like listening to a lot of Filth, listening to Doom, listening to Destroy, listening to Disrupt, like stuff that was a bit more metallic, maybe like Logical Nonsense, Disassociate, you know, stuff that was bleeding into grind. Maybe rediscovering Sepultura a little bit, you know, getting back into them from like my metal years a few years prior. But this, I was just like, this sounds like my like stuff that's like my personal hell. Like it doesn't sound like a conceived hell. It sounds like the nightmares I've actually had. And to me, it's still like top tier, like frightening, heavy.
I need a copy of that in my life.
Damn, it's
I sold it. I sold it to Eric Bauer just now. But yeah, it's fucking great, man. I mean, I love it. And they're German, and they're part of that whole movement of like bands like these guys in Sistral, who are also like, they were a different sound entirely. They were like early weird German. I don't even know how you could even use the word metalcore, because they were more like death metal combined with like hardcore and a little bit of stone, like groove-ish stuff, but not in a gross way. And then that band Y, that was just the letter Y, they were like more grind. They were all kind of in the same weird little, I don't know if it was a scene or they just got lumped in with each other because they were all from Germany.
I know that I've heard that Acme material. It's been a long time, but I know I've heard it.
Yeah. I
don't really remember. I remember thinking it sounded a lot like Holy Terror hardcore, kind of like that sort of like Integrity, Ringworm, Gehenna style.
Yes. Somewhat, but less like fast, like fast. Like
have you heard ABC Diablo? Also German.
Yeah, I remember them.
Their stuff was put out by like Common Cause in Europe, and Life is Abuse put it out in the States.
Yeah.
They had an album called Give Rise to Doubt, which was a big one for me. I almost picked that one. But based off of how you described that Acme, that's kind of like how I would describe that ABC Diablo. Like that's another big Mike Seatown favorite. I saw that band live at a warehouse in Seattle, like an unannounced show. They were an unannounced band at an unannounced show. They were just visiting and they just played. It was killer. But I'm definitely sold on that Acme now. Like, gonna have to cop it for sure.
Tell you what, my quick research right here tells me that if you want that Acme on a vinyl, it's going to cost you a few hours of work, if you will.
Hey, man, I got nothing but hours.
I don't know why it's so expensive. Maybe just because it's low. That CD is affordable, but LP versions of that start at like $70.
Yeah, and I used to have it on LP, and you know, in the era when like I needed money and. Yeah. Or there was something I wanted more, and I just flip records and
that's why like videos like this are so interesting to me, because I know like there's been a little bit of a trend with YouTube people being like my Discogs most expensive records, and like I watch those sometimes because I like to see records I've never heard of, and I'm like, holy shit, that's expensive. And that's what just happened here. I'm like, oh, Acme, I know I've seen the logo, I've never listened to it. I'm like, oh, I wonder like, you know, maybe I can just like maybe I'll be able to grab something, and I'm like $64 is the cheapest one. I'm like, so looks like I'll be starting with the compact disc.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've gotten back into CDs. I'm like, fuck it.
Cheaper.
You know,
yeah.
For sure.
And I can have a physical thing that I can look at and play, and I'll put it on, and it will probably sound better, and I don't have to flip it over. Who cares?
They're getting cheaper and cheaper, man. I'm telling you, it's getting there. Okay.
Like, let's see if there's a best of Hiatus on. Oh, there we go. We got a Hiatus CD here. Cheapest CD, $21.
Boom.
Nah, not bad. Only US copies, 24. From Doug and Linda. Hook. God damn it, Doug and Linda. Okay.
Doug and Linda. Doug and Linda, dude. Many in order from Doug and Linda.
I bought some conflict from Doug and Linda.
So we're still in Copenhagen. We're still in the incestuous dudes all being in the same band. So this is like I don't want to say weakest, but like the most melodic. Still not pop punk. Is not pop punk. I don't even know why I said that phrase. When I say melodic, it's not that. I'm gonna go with the No Hope for the Kids LP.
Yes.
That's another one I've never even heard of.
So I really love this record a lot. Like,
dude, you love it, Eric. It's great.
Like a lot. They're another Copenhagen punk band. This is super California punk, like super melodic, but not. This is early '80s California melodic. Like it's not, Fat Records era melodic. A great band. Like all the songs are real fucking downer on here too, where it's like they're singing like a melodic way, and all this they're about the world ending and.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like Adolescence meets the Wipers or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
super doomy, but not in a goth, like gloomy, but not in a goth like death rock kind of way.
But
like Funeral Oration.
Yes,
Never
that'll
heard of
be. But so they mix up here too. So you got English and what is it Dutch? Where they speak in Denmark? Denmarkian.
Dutch, right? That's Dutch.
I only have a high school education. I'm trying to make you guys laugh. I know Denmarkian's not a real language, guys. It's my sense of humor.
No, they speak Dutch in the Netherlands.
Dutchian. But like there's songs about World War I on here and stuff. Like even like the song No Hope for the Kids. Like since 1998, I've been drinking. My face was full of zits. I was stuck in a room and I was thinking there's no hope for the kids. Yeah. So this band, so I mentioned earlier, they put out
that holds that suburban angst captured perfectly in that one.
Yeah. Eric, like check this out. Like I think you would dig this. This is, and this was another thing in the early 2Ks. This was really hard to get, not because it was rare. It's just these did not come to the U.S. Like they just couldn't. And it's on Kick and Punch, which is like that's the label that the other Young Wasteners record I want is on. This was repressed a few years, I believe in 04 and 05, where the cover's white instead of red.
Yep.
And that one I've seen around, but the red one is this is the one where you can buy and tell them you bought it when it came out. But the 7-inch I brought up earlier, so they put out a 7-inch on a label called Backwards Masking, which was out of Western Mass that I blind bought at a show at an Elks Lodge. And I was like, holy fucking shit. Like, this is like great stuff. Like, this is like, and I remember I played it for my friend Christian and he was like, what the hell is this? And like, we got super into this band. I bought this from Eric Yu, actually. He had this in a distro.
Oh, no shit. Yeah,
way back then.
I still really want a copy of that. I have the Das Reich single. Those two songs are fucking amazing. Like, I need to own them.
Every song on this is a playthrough. This is a total playthrough. But I wanted to show this too. So this is another rant. So
if they have a discography CD.
They have a tape. That's what I'm about to show. So they have a tape that I believe came out on a Polish label.
Is it like Connect We or whatever?
Probably. I've got a funny story about that. Maybe not that label, but one of those Polish labels, but after Jason's.
Trosofala?
Yeah, that's the other one, the other big one.
Trujoka or something. Yeah, okay.
It comes with this ad where you can buy, what do we got here? Born Dead Icons, Iconochrist, Ballast, Behind Enemy Lines, Monster, Evil, Signal Lost. It's basically just like, we're going to jam as much shit on a tape as we can.
Yeah, I have a DS13, one of those. I have a Born Dead Icons, one of those.
Yeah. But what they did here is, so this band only put out 2 EPs in this LP. So this tape has it all. There's the first EP, which had Das Reich on it, which I believe is a song about, I think that's World War I. It was 2-song EP. Then they put out the LP. Then I think they put out the second EP they put out might have been like, I don't think they existed anymore when that came out. I think that was like they were just about over. I don't even know where I got this, like, but I've had it because I remember buying it just because I love this band. And they also got this is pre-Discogs. This is probably like 2007 or 8. I probably bought this map. I don't know. And it's funny too because they broke a tape, the fucking spindles off another tape case to fit this in here.
I used to do that to the really fat J card tapes. So the tape would actually close. So this band I believe came to the US once, and they were supposed to play a fest in Philadelphia that got shut down for nefarious reasons.
Was that Pointless Fest?
Yeah. So they ended up.
You mean it was Oogle's trying to fight cops? Was that the nefarious reason?
All sorts of weird. There's all sorts of stories about why that thing stopped. There was wild shit going on, and then they ended up playing like in a warehouse, somewhere in Philly. And I think they just like played one. They might have played a handful of shows and went and never came back. But
yeah,
so I never got to see them, and I still kick myself in the fucking ass for that because I really love this band.
Yeah. That era of like all that like early 80s melodic US hardcore revival kind of stuff, like the kick and punch bands and like the Cola Freaks, and there's a ton of it. What was what was the one with it had the woman from the Donuts in it, but they were like a garagey punk band. I can't remember her name.
This is me thinking. Oh,
but they were part of that. They were from Mia. There was a bunch of that stuff out of Mia too.
Does it cover him like with an acoustic guitar that's on fire and he's like swinging it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so here's the Copenhagen connection. I believe they all shared at least one member.
I'm gonna need you all to send me the names of these albums so I can put it in the description below.
I think you can find even the later press with the white cover that's fairly easy now. But
dude, I just looked it up on Discogs.
You had to hunt.
It's like $7 now, so I'm gonna buy it right now. Actually.
Sold. All right. So I guess this is my last pick. This was the hardest one. None of these for me are really in order. I guess I could rank them if I really felt like I needed to. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the Contropotere would probably be my number one, but this was close. This is Nausea from Greece.
Oh yeah.
And this is actually a reissue. So you're talking about stuff that's like not really rare, but it is rare because it never came to the United States. This is a reissue that came out last year. And it has their first album, which I'm not even going to try and say in Greek, but I will say what it translates to. European Renaissance was their first like full-length album that wasn't a split or wasn't a demo tape. And then after that, they did a split LP with this band from Germany called Grauzellen, who I know I've heard, but I'm not super familiar with it. So this LP has both. It has the split, and then it has the 12-inch on it as well. The 12-inch is super short. I think it just takes up like one side. This stuff is fucking amazing, and this is probably the record that honestly like told me, hey, there's a scene in Greece, and not just like a little scene, but like a crazy scene in Greece of like squatters who fight cops and fascists, and it's awesome. I first heard of this band on that double LP comp Scold put out called Whispers, which also had Hiatus on it, and Contropotere was on that. Dystopia was on that comp. Basically any band that had ever been released or partially released by Scold had at least one track like on that comp. And the comp came out in, I wrote it down, 94 was when that comp came out. A lot of bands on Lucifer's Mob. That was where I first got introduced to that band. Fucking ABC Diablo again, Action Mutante, Sedition, all had tracks on that comp along with this band. And that's what the logo looks like. But it's not Natia or Nαυτία as it's spelled in Greek, it's nausea. Not to be confused with like the other 3 or 4 nausea bands that existed around that time. This shit fucking rules. Like, have either of you guys heard the band Anarchrust? I think they were from either like the Netherlands or Holland. They were like really thrashy, like anarcho-punk, but like almost thrash metal with like funk element almost. Really weird band. Like
Mordred, but crust.
Yeah, kind of like that a little bit. like really funky like bass, but like
Nice.
like the guitar and the drums were just straight up like thrashing crust. So there's like elements of that, but then you get like elements of like doom. Of course, was like a big influence on these guys. There's
Of
like you
course.
hear it. I talked about this briefly on a podcast episode
No, I
year.
remember that episode.
actually. So you hear a doom influence, but like it's very distinctly Greece, and it's really like the first Greek, not even just crust, but first Greek punk band that I ever became like aware of, and it's thanks to that comp. And at the time, copies, the original copies, weren't super hard to find. Like you could find them in like specialty shops in the '90s, like Fallout Records in Seattle. That's where I caught my copy. And I saw it when Singles Going Steady opened up in Seattle in the late '90s. I saw copies in there every now and again. But it's originals now of this are like super hard to find. And this reissue came out from Labyrinth of Thoughts, which is like a Greek label, and it was not distributed outside of Greece. So when I got this, I had to order it directly from Greece to get it. And it took a long time to get here, but it was worth the wait. This is an album honestly I never thought I'd have back in my collection. And I want to say maybe they still have copies. It wasn't expensive, and shipping wasn't expensive. It just took a long time to get here.
Yeah.
But yeah, this stuff is just, it's crucial, man. It's a little bit more crusty, for sure. Very super like political, but not just like political. They tackle a lot of social issues that I think a lot of crust bands out of the UK and out of like the US weren't really tackling at the time. So they like a lot of like stuff that had to do with like gender identity, for instance, or like stuff in that kind of like realm, I guess. It's just super good. I can't recommend it enough. I don't know that I would say it's essential, but I would say it's essential if you're really into crust. And like
which I am.
kind of like the advent of crust music in the early '90s for sure. But just look at that fucking artwork, man. Like
It's sick.
That's fucking wild.
And then this is the back.
It's a lot.
I see something in there.
Yeah. And then, it came with this super nice like booklet with like lyrics and articles and flyers and like interview bits and whatnot.
Man, I love that. I love
It's
that.
fucking killer.
I also feel like there's other people that have mentioned them, like that dude Charlie from the UK that just recently started up his own channel. I think he's mentioned them like in my comments at some point for one reason or another.
Well,
so I mean, they are known like in some circles. I had never heard of them before I heard your podcast mentioning them, but even like you describing them in that episode of High Defamation, I was like, I need to fucking check that out. Sounds like it's up my alley. It's
killer, dude. It's awesome. It's like, I don't, there's definite metal leanings, but I don't think, I think at the time, like, they were probably turn their thumbs up at the idea of being mislabeled as a metal band, the same way that like Doom would have at the time. But I mean, you definitely hear a lot of that thrash influence that I think a lot of those crust bands, specifically like the UK crust bands, that were doing like the whole Peaceville Exodus at the time, were kind of guilty of as well. But yeah, it's fucking killer, man. Awesome. That was my last one.
Right on.
That was it. I pulled out, like I said, I pulled out some other shit that I'm not really going to go into a lot of detail about, but like this was almost a pick. Here, let me get rid of that glare for y'all. This is almost a pick right here. The black uniforms.
Oh yeah.
It's not really hardcore though, which is one of the reasons why I kind of omitted it. It's Swedish members of Anti-Cemex and fucking Driller Killer. It's more like metal punk, but like early metal punk. So like think like Genocide, or like like the English Dogs era of metal.
Yeah. Genocide.
Kind of like
That's
that.
a cool looking band.
And then a cool looking band, kind of a goofy looking band. This is another one that I considered this, but I don't really think it's a hardcore record. The X out of Denmark, Disturbing Domestic Peace from like 1980. This is a reissue on Superior Viaduct.
Oh, really? Was it like $85?
What's that?
Was it like $85 because it was on Superior?
No, I just got this at the Silver Platters up the street like a while back. It's like anarcho-punk, so it's like kind of like that crass, like Flux of Pink Indian sound, which is one of the reasons why I kind of omitted. It's great. It rules. And they got like kind of poppier. They didn't quite suffer like the Chumbawamba fall from anarcho-punk awesomeness,
rock radio song.
Right.
One song.
But yeah, this is just another great one. It's pretty obscure, I guess, but not so obscure that it wasn't reissued by a kind of a bigger U.S. label, I guess.
Superior Viaduct did those Devo represses years ago, and I think they made so much money off doing those that they can now press stuff like that and now be like, yeah, it doesn't matter, we can sell them,
Right. Yeah, it's great. And then I pulled another. This was one I almost talked about. Destructions. Vox Populi.
I just got that tape in the mail like 3 days ago.
Fucking
the
rules,
same tape.
man. Some of the best Finnish hardcore, honestly, for my money.
From a distro, Jason, or
Grave Mistake has them.
It's up there.
Like right now, they're like $5.
I'd put it up there with like
I just ordered a ton of shit from Grave Mistake.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and take a look.
I put it up there with Bastards and like fucking Riestetet.
Yeah,
for sure.
Riestetet. No, it's funny you've mentioned two bands that in their like black uniforms and Riestetet that had like when the main chunk of Boston punk started listening to those bands, it became like their band. Like, remember that, Pat? Like, black uniforms was huge. Riestetet was humongous. Like, within like a day, everyone had it painted on their jacket. Like,
yeah, because it was all the kids that used to have like Skeptics and like part of their jacket discovered, stuff that was a little bit more left field, even if it was whether it was Finnish or Japanese or like metal punk kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but Riestetet was a big one here. Like
yeah, well, they're great. I mean, I
prefer when they started doing like the Riestetet became like the Holy Dolls or whatever they were called. Yeah, that tape, fucking killer, so good. Total boot, but I mean,
yeah.
Who cares?
Because this is quickly off topic for a second. They also had these, which is just a 2019 Manic Relapse mixtape of bands that played the fest.
That's killer.
Grave Mistake had these. They were like $5 a piece. So,
fucking killer.
Then we got this European classic.
Listen, since neither of us went for it, I guess for an honorable mention, I'd be remiss not to mention DS13. This is one of those Polish tapes, the Trucofalia label.
That's who put out that fucking Unhinged tape that I just got in the mail not too long ago.
This, and these notoriously have J cards that are not even
insanely huge J cards. Yeah.
But yeah, this is like everything they did, most of the stuff they did, at least during their first run. I think all they did when they got back together was live stuff anyway, but the Killed by the Kids LP, and then like all of their 7-inches were compiled on Vodvet v Kriget.
Yep.
But I love DS13. When they started coming around, it was like the beginning of that thrashcore revival, like let's play hyper fast hardcore like we did in the 80s. These guys and Tear It Up and Nine Shocks Terror, all kind of taking different elements. But I mean, DS13 were inescapably Swedish. They couldn't escape the Swedishness in their sound, but they clearly listened to a lot of American hardcore, just judging by like, you know, the breakneck paces and the breaks and speed and everything. And they were good live. Like I saw them the second time I went over to Europe, I saw them in the UK 3 times. Like I followed them around like they were fucking fish or something. I saw them on tour. With ETA, Epileptic Terror Attack, and I saw them in London, Nottingham, and Bradford, and all the shows were incredible. ETA was really good too. The Nottingham show was with Voorhees playing. That was also
awesome.
Fucking rad.
Yeah.
It's a band I'm still like sadly unfamiliar with.
Voorhees has a lot of stuff. I like
not Voorhees, DS13.
Oh, DS13. Yeah, like they don't really have anything bad. I like the 7 inches better than the LP, but it's still great. Like all of it's really good.
Plus had cover art too.
Plus had cover art for sure, yeah. And the other one that I wanted to mention was a lot of talk of Italian hardcore, a lot of really good Italian hardcore bands.
Stinky Rats.
Wretched, yeah, you know, Wretched, Ingesty, Impact. I like all that stuff. Stinky Rats I like a lot because they have like a very like tasteful like death rock influence. It sounds like to me, like that kind of like chorus pedal, like sort of morbid sort of thing. At least on the I think it's a mini LP. That's the first thing on here.
Great cover too.
Yeah,
great cover art. Yeah, with I think that's stolen Vampira art there.
Yeah.
But like, and their demo is more like straight up hardcore, traditional hardcore. But like, I love the first 8 songs on this. They're fucking great. It's like death rock hardcore kind of shit.
That's
really
awesome.
Cool.
Fuck yeah.
I saw DS13 at probably the weirdest, most uncomfortable show I ever went to in my whole life. Actual 9/11.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
In Rhode Island. Yeah, with Drop Dead. I still have Drop Dead was literally handing out like stacks of flyers about like what was going on. And I remember I still have them somewhere. I kept all of them.
That's crazy.
That's so weird.
In a VFW hall nonetheless. And it was in Providence, but it was in like it was like way. I've never been back there. It was like this place I've never been before.
I saw them right before that, and actually, if I'm remembering right, it was Nottingham, Bradford, Glasgow that I saw them. Not London because my memory's fucked. But I also saw them in Lawrence, I saw them in Lawrence with Kill the Man Who Questions and Reversal of Man, and then like a couple of like Spock rock like screamo bands, like I think Black Cat 13.
Yeah, it sounds
like Black Cat 13 and the Blow Up or something like that. Like a couple of those bands played, so that was a weird juxtaposition, kind of.
You went to the show a couple of years ago, right? Was it a couple of years ago now where they played?
No, I didn't go to any of the reunions. I kind of regret that, but I didn't.
I went. It was like on like a Tuesday night, and I think they played at like 12:59, and I was just like, "Oh, I gotta literally be at work in 5 hours." Like, I'm now. I was like one of those "I'm now old" moments for me.
Yeah,
I should be home.
Yeah.
All right, I got 2 releases by the same band. Not really an honorable mention, but Shipwrecked.
Great stuff.
This is the first one here from 2012, and then the last one they put out like 2 or 3 years ago.
Like 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, this is straight up Boston hardcore. This is it's Last Rites and Slapshot mixed with, you know, Negative Approach. It's just fucking punch someone in the face and dance on their head hardcore.
Sick.
Like legit lyrics. Was it lifting weights in the garage while listening to Tang records and stuff? Like
weights to early Tang.
Yeah, and the thing about I've actually met
that.
I've met these dudes too, and I've like actually befriended them. Like I'm
Klaus?
Yeah.
Seems like a good guy.
Yeah, they're great guys. I wish they would come back. But well, I mean, if they ever come back to the US ever, who knows?
Have you ever listened to Klaus? He stopped doing it, but have you ever listened to Klaus's podcast?
Yeah.
With Peter Morsey from Forced Entry, or not Forced Entry, Forced Reality, not the Oi band, not the Pacific Northwest thrash metal band.
100 Demons, man.
Yeah, he's also in 100
You mean
Demons.
The Bone Crack and Fever guy?
But it's like him and Peter talking to all these different like hardcore scene dudes like Dwid and the singer from Trial and all these guys talking just about, not about music at all, just their paranormal experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Rules.
It's pretty interesting because there's a lot of people that are like terrifying, like hardcore dudes that are like, yeah, man, I've never been so scared in my life. Like the shadow creatures were climbing up the walls, like shit like that. It's awesome.
That's
Talking about their
rad.
night terrors and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say this second LP here is a little bit more it's a little more it's recorded a little bit better. I don't want to say better, but this is more like just like straight up like like mosh and like sing along with your friends. This has like some like riffs and like licks in it that aren't necessarily in this one.
Yeah.
They have a couple 7-inches too, which I have buried, so I didn't pull them out.
I have one of them. That's like, it's nice. It's like a gatefold 7-inch, I think.
Yeah, they have the first 7-inch they put out is like a real pain in the ass to find. Like I just, similar to my theme of the evening is they just didn't really get distroed over here, so like you couldn't just find them. Like I believe they sent them over here by the handful. I was given mine by someone who got it from Klaus. Send them like literally like 10 of them and was like, give these out, like we want people to know who the band is.
And Klaus's old band, Insurance Risk, were pretty good too.
Yeah, trying to like do a flex here, but I can't find it. I'm banked in this, but I can't find my name. I'm not making it up. I'm actually in here.
We believe you, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
Talk about something.
We went through everything. We're coming to a close here, buddy.
I like that. I like that second that EP, the last thing they did. But you could tell. I mean, they were going for something like they had been listening to a lot of Battle Ruins. You could tell there was like a song or two on there that's like triumphant, you know, which is I'm not mad at. Like, you know, sounds good and everything.
They thank Fenris.
Yeah, because they covered part of In the Shadow of the Horns live.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So I saw them. I saw them play at.
Well, too.
The last time I saw them, they played at This Is Hardcore in Philly, which was like weird because they're not of the ilk of a lot of the bands that play This Is Hardcore.
Yeah.
So the skinhead dudes who appeared were going off, and like all the nut jobs in Boston that drove down were going off. But like there was a lot of dudes wearing fanny packs with basketball jerseys that were like.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so Shipwrecked.
Nice.
Great.
Well, right on. I think we're at an end here, guys.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I appreciate that you all came on here and shared some shit that is new to me. For sure.
I definitely have that Hiatus 12-inch in my cart and No Hope for the Kids CD.
I didn't even know they had it on CD.
Yeah, it's like $7 on CD, so I'm gonna buy it.
Was there only one?
I think there's more than one.
I'm gonna scoop that right now.
So you can have it for your car.
All right. Well, shit. Yeah. Thanks for popping on the show, and till next time we figure out something else. Maybe we'll do this again.
Yeah, man. Thanks for
talk
having us.
about Japanese hardcore or U.S. hardcore.
I'm so intimidated to talk about Japanese hardcore. It's so much I
such
don't know.
I don't own a lot. I don't own a lot of physical. I mean, and again, it's like stolen MP3s. I don't own I've owned very few physical Japanese stuff.
I have a lot. I'm guilty.
Yeah. I mean, I doubt that he'd actually agree to like. He's a mysterious, evasive man. But my friend Mike, who did a bunch of my tattoos and played in Black Sheep Squadron and did the logo for my channel and stuff. He was a guy who like taped me Gizm and Gauze and all that shit when I was like in my early 20s. He knows a lot. He's been to Japan and seen Gauze live. So he'd probably have stuff to add if I could get him to go on, but it's hard to get him to agree to do so. He's very selective about like, okay,
right.
Which is
right.
Not,
YouTube's not for everyone.
Yeah, like I completely get it. You know what I mean? But I'll ask him anyway.
Well, all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna hit stop on this recording. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is the point where you're going to stop seeing shit. But you know, keep in touch, keep in tune with the channel. Be putting up another video which you might see before this or potentially after this, where I'm going to talk about a 2,000 subs giveaway. This guy right over here just hit 2,000.
Yep.
I have 527.
This guy needs to get closer to 2,000, but he also needs to make some content.
How about 600?
Let's give it a 600. See if we can do that. So links to their channels will be included down below in the description box, as well as at least the names of everything we talked about tonight. So that said, thanks YouTube. Keep it real and stay healthy.